when you spending money inside of a property on a renovation, what can you actually look to get out of that property?
I'd like to know what's the difference when you say buying out of intrinsic value as compared to market value. That's my first question.
Yeah.
And the second question would be what happens when you pull the equity of a property? Would that actually be applied back as a mortgage back to the original value of the property? Could you explain those two? Explain those two?
The difference between intrinsic value and actual value, okay? So there's certain things that happens during a renovation that actually adds actual value to the house, okay? And so from an appraiser perspective, there's going to be bed bath count, square footage, all of those type of metrics actually adds value to the house, actual value. Okay, this is how we look at comps, comparable homes. However, there's certain things that don't. So like whether you put level one granite or quartz in the property, that's gonna give more intrinsic value to that buyer, but it don't add actual value to the property. Okay, if you go in and you put certain tile choices in the bathroom, that's gonna give more intrinsic value to that buyer, but not actual value to the property. So, and also when an appraiser is looking at a property, they're measuring above ground heated square footage. So if you in a market where there's basements and you go below grade and you put four bedrooms and a bathroom down there, those four bedrooms and a bathroom don't get counted in the actual above ground heated square footage. So that adds intrinsic value to the buyer because in real life they got four bedrooms downstairs and a bathroom. But in terms of you adding additional value to the price of the home, it doesn't do that. So that's the difference between intrinsic value and actual value. You have to understand when you spending money inside of a property on a renovation, what can you actually look to get out of that property? Does that make sense?
So what are we buying? So we buying a property. We looking for the intrinsic value of the property, or we buying at the market value of the property?
Intrinsic value becomes more prevalent when we're talking about when we exit the property. So what I gave you is a scenario of we bought a fix and flip. We're going through and we're renovating the property. We're figuring out what choices should we make inside the property to achieve our target after repair value, our target sales price. When this buyer who gets a loan from their bank, right, they got a pre-qualification, they out shopping for properties, they come across yours, they're pre-approved for $300,000 to buy your house, right? But you as the investor say, well, I want to sell it for $350,000. Okay, which you well within your right to do that. However, all of the comps suggest that the property is worth $300,000, and you like, well, I put gold toilets, quartz. I finished the basement. I put 3 bedrooms and 2 baths with a stand-up shower, and I got rock marble, this and that. That's intrinsic value. So that don't make the property worth $350,000 just because you spend an extra $50,000 in finishes to try to make it that. You follow what I'm saying? So there are certain things that add actual value to a property, like the additional square footage, the bed bath count, anything above ground heated square footage, right? There's certain things within that. Those are things that add actual value. But buyers still do take into account intrinsic value. So let's just say it's 5 homes on the market and they all 300,000, okay? And let's just say that all of those properties are 4 bed, 2 bath, 2,500 square feet, right? Give or take. You happen to have a property that's 4 bed, 2 bath, 2,500 square feet, but in the basement, you got an additional 2 bedrooms and a full bath down there. So your property now, although it's the same value as those other ones, from an actual value perspective, your intrinsic value for that buyer just increased because they're more enticed to want to buy your property because you got more things intrinsically that make sense to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. But then would they get a pre-approval to suit their choice now what they want.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, but the most important thing is this, and this is what everybody needs to take away from this conversation. The appraised value has the final say in everything. So the buyer could be pre-approved for 500,000. If the property appraised for 350, they're not going to spend. They can't spend 500,000, right? I mean, they could. I mean, theoretically, they could. They could pay $150,000 out of pocket above what the property appraised. But who in their right mind, I guess, other than the last 2 years, will overpay for a property that appraised for less than what they're paying for it? Because that would indicate that they're upside down based off of what the property is worth and how much money they got into it. That's negative equity, right? So it's just not logically, it don't logically make sense. But guess what? For the last 24 months, when rates were 2-3% and there was 17 offers on the property, people were overpaying for properties 30, 40, 50% and dropping that money out of pocket because intrinsic value. Supply and demand created a hyped up urgency. People wanted to take advantage of the cheaper interest rates, not realizing, but you overpaying in value by, 30, 40%. So now when the market starts to come the opposite way, you quickly upside down, right? So for me, when people were running out with, cheaper interest rates and figuring they'll overpay for property, I'm sitting in the back and I'm like, I would rather wait to have higher interest rates and get a deeper discount on the value. Because guess what I can do? At some point, I can always refinance that interest rate and I got a better discount on the property. But if I overpaid for the property and I already got the cheapest interest rate that I could get, I got no place to go but down. Does that make sense? So this is why we can't let mass media control the narrative. When they say interest rates are low, go out and buy, it's like, and then all the sheep, the 99%, like, okay, let's go do it. When the 1% sitting back, like, but ain't nobody paying attention to the fact that they overpaying for properties 30, 40, 50% of market value. Like that we're in an inflated and fictitious economy that we just pumping fiat currency into the market that's losing value every day. Right? The government did all of that intentionally to stimulate the market during which should have been a depression during the pandemic. You know what I mean? So anyway, I give y'all additional context, but does that give you more clarity between intrinsic value and actual value? Now, this is the beautiful part about intrinsic value. If you can position yourself and get a property well under market value, the distressed properties that I've been talking and teaching about all week, that gives you the wiggle room to first go in and do the things structurally sound to the property and functionally sound to the property to increase the actual value. Then that gives you the latitude to put some subtle nuance in your property that differs from the ones that's on the market that would then give it additional intrinsic value. So now when your buyers, when the potential buyers are coming in, not only are you already at par with the rest of the market based on functionality, the bed, bath count, square footage requirement, all of that's there. Now you can go above and beyond, spend an extra couple dollars out of your budget, right, without compromising margin erosion, and add these intrinsic pieces to make your property stand out amongst the rest. You follow me? So whenever you're doing a renovation on a property, you always do what's functionally and structurally sound first. Then you look at the intrinsic pieces.